Hey guys, Matthew here. Welcome to the final update of the Hideout Zero to Hero. So as you can see, we have gotten our Headhunter here. From scratch, the moment that we basically started farming in Blood Aqueducts, it took a total of 22 hours to reach this Headhunter, and we bought it for 80 exalts. I don't know if they've kept going down, but last night they were 80x. Looks like they actually went back up a little bit, but that is what I paid for it. Roughly about 4 exalt an hour was how much currency we were making through various methods. So one thing that you'll see if you actually watch the previous episodes is that in every episode I try to talk about a different flipping method, and every day on my stream I tried to basically bring a new method of making currency via Hideout Warrior. So on the first day, for example, I focused mostly on flipping bulk things because it was very, very good. And then I did a little bit of prophecies. On the second day, I did a lot of prophecies and I focused on things like faded uniques and stuff like that. And on the third day, I finished on what I like to call completed items. I'll talk about what that means. And those are basically the three main methods of flipping in your hideout that require basically zero knowledge and zero effort. Now, there are a lot of other flipping methods which, don't get me wrong, are probably much, much better. Things like flipping rare items, things like flipping, good cluster jewels or stuff like that. But those methods, the way I like to look at it, is that you're basically taking advantage of knowledge more so than your own service that you're providing. Which is why I kind of I stayed away from all of those methods, even though I know they're very good, because I didn't want people to look at this Hideout Warrior series and go like, oh, so you scammed a bunch of noobs to get a Headhunter. Congratulations, you're an asshole, right? So I tried to keep it to things, to flipping methods that I consider basically that you are offering a service to other people in order to make currency via the time that you're spending, where you're not abusing or taking advantage of anything or anyone, realistically. Anyways, so let's get right into the video. Now, before I talk about that real quick, actually, I gotta give a few shout-outs that were a couple community members asked me to give them a shout-out to different things, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. If you're somebody who likes making their own hideouts, right? Especially this league, they decided to remove all the cost of hideouts. You can make the craziest hideout and it's completely free or whatever. There is this Hideout competition ran by Pegasus Rider. I'll be posting the link to that in the description. There are some cool little prizes. I think like some real life necklaces with chaos orbs and stuff like that. Like it's some pretty cool stuff. So you'll probably want to check that out if you're into Hideout creation. Now another shout out I want to give out real quick is to the MF Academy Discord and also the MF Academy Google document. So this is ran by a guy called Exosta, which is a dude who's been around for a very, very long time, and it is an extremely well done Magic Find guide. Put it this way, Magic Find has always been really good, and especially in Standard, it's been like the go-to money way of making currency because there's all this crazy legacy gear. But ever since Exosta started MF Academy and got this thing on the road, it's really gained a lot of popularity and a lot of speed, and people have been testing many different techniques. So huge shout out to the MF Academy community, and I'll link this document as well as their Discord link in the description. If you're somebody who got into MFing, especially this league, it's huge, right? A lot of people are magic finding. You'll probably want to check them out because they are very, very good at teaching people how to magic find from the very beginning all the way up to the extremely high end. Okay, now that my shoutouts are out of the way, let's talk about what I want to talk about today, which is what I like to call completing items. So what that means basically is that you're buying pieces of an item in order to make a completed item. So we're staying away from things like bulking or prophecies, and we're going to something new. So this could be emblems, it could be simulacrums, divination card, breachstones. I'll talk about 3 of these in today's video, but note that this can be applied to a lot more than what I'll be talking about. It's all about just finding those market gaps, as I previously mentioned in the last episode. Okay, so let's take an example of something I did yesterday. If we look at Timeless Mariketh emblem or Timeless Mariketh splinters on the trade website, you can see that they go for about a chaos each. Right? Now, they do go up fairly quickly. Matter of fact, they go very, very quickly because I did show this method on stream and there is a very limited amount of supply. However, again, this can be applied to many, many other things, not just Timeless Mariketh splinters, but this is what I did on stream, and I was buying these. I bought 700 of these for 1 chaos each, which means I made 7 emblems for 100C each. Now, what I did is I went under the bulk version. So I went under, I have chaos, I want Mariketh emblems, Mariketh splinters, and I wanted to buy them 10 at a time. Initially I was doing 50 at a time, and people were selling me nearly entire emblems for 1C per splinter. So you're going to be able to buy these splinters, right? Whatever people do answer. And then I was selling the Mariketh emblems at 1x a pop, which is about 150C, 145C, whatever it is. So I was basically making 50% return of investment per emblem or per splinter purchased. So what that means is that every time I bought a splinter, I was making 0.5 chaos profit, or 0.45, which is not great, but that means that if I was buying 10 at a time, I was making 4.5 chaos profit in a trade. And if I was buying, say, 20 splinters at a time, I was making 9 chaos profit in that single trade. And like I said, I was buying 50 plus at a time for some time. Now, one thing I will say is that you can actually go a step further. I was actually having a hard time. I was not able, my Timeless Mariketh emblems were on sale for the entirety of my stream, and they didn't sell. So I was like, damn, what's going on? Like, nobody cares about this. So what I did is I ended up going over to TFT. This link will also be in the description. I'm sure most people have heard about TFT at this time. So TFT is a Discord community where you can basically buy and sell things like harvest crafts, like services, etc. And one thing they offer is bulk sets want to sell. And what I did is I basically went over here, and instead of selling my emblems as single Mariketh emblems, I basically bought out. I had 7 Timeless Mariketh. I bought 7 Timeless emblems of each of the other set, and then I sold them as sets for 2.2 Exalt each. So I was actually making even more money than if I was selling these for just 1x a pop, because these are less than an X. These are like 20C and these are like 10C each or so. So I was, the value of all my emblems was like 1.8x or something, 1.9x, and I was able to sell them for 2.2, so adding even a little bit more currency, and they sold instantly. For the same time that I was unable to sell my my Mariketh emblems for like 7 hours on stream, just they were sitting there. They sold within 5 minutes of me posting them on the Discord as emblem sets for 2.2x each. So just thought I'd let you guys know you can go a step further and make even more currency. Okay, now another thing that you can do in terms of completing items is making breach stones. So now you could do exactly what I just mentioned, making breach stones via splinters, but what I want to talk about is something a little bit more advanced, and that is going to be blessings. So if you look at for example, exhaust breach stone here, it goes for about 10 to 12 chaos, or anything below 15C, and there's quite a lot of them for that price, right? And you can live search them for even 10C each, and they'll pop up once in a while, but let's call them 12C. Now, if you look at the price of the Blessing of Zoth, they're about, again, somewhere around 10 to 12C, and, you know, as long as you are not absolutely spamming this market, you're going to be able to get them for roughly below 15C, but just for the sake of this, let's call the Blessing at 10C, and let's call the Breachstone at 10C. And if you look at Breachstones, there's a recipe that you can basically Blessing a Breachstone to get 1 tier higher, and you can go all the way up to pure Breachstones with 3 blessings, right? Exhaust plus 3 Breachstone will give you Charge, Enrich, and then Pure. So if we consider this at 10C a pop and this at 10C as well, that means that we need 4 things that are going to cost us 10C each, and then at the end of the day, the Exhaust's Pure Breachstone is about worth 60C, which means you're making about 20 chaos profit. Now, of course, this is considering that you are buying these at the absolute minimum, which is 10C, which is probably not going to happen. But one thing to note is if you have a little bit of capital, you can do this multiple times. You can then sell the Breachstones for a bulk markup, as you can see, 2 per X. So instead of getting about 60, 65C, you'll get roughly 70C-ish per Breachstone. So even if you are not getting them for exactly 10C, say you're paying a little bit more and getting them for like 12C for the Breachstones and 12C for the Blessings, adding a total of 8 chaos to your cost, basically meaning you're paying 48C for the whole ordeal instead of 40C. Well, if you can sell it for 75, you're still making additional profit. And this can be applied to, once again, not just, you know, pure exhaust, but it could be Chayulas, it could be any of the other Breachstones, and of course, it could also be making the Breachstones via the splinters themselves. The cheaper the Breachstone is, the worse it's going to be, right? So for example, if you're doing the exhaust Breachstones with splinters and you're buying splinters 10 at a time, even if you're getting them for slightly cheaper, because the end product is worth barely anything, 10C in this case, you're not going to be making a whole lot of profit. So that is one of the other parts of this completing items that I like to do in order to flip and make a little bit of currency. Okay, now let's go to another one, and that is going to be divination card flipping. Now, it's the same exact idea. You're buying pieces of an item in order to sell the completed item for a markup, a profit, due to the time that you're putting into buying the items. So here's a really good example. I made a lot of currency on this. I probably made around close to 10x in just a couple hours off of this at the end of yesterday's stream. So if you look at Queen's Sacrifice here, the Divination card goes for about 130 Chaos. There's quite a few of them for around 130, 140 Chaos. Let's just call it as bad as it gets. Let's call it that you're buying these for 140 Chaos. So I'm going to need a calculator because these numbers are getting a little bit big here. So 140 Chaos, and you're going to need 5 of these bad boys, right? Which is 700 Chaos total. Now you look at the completed item, the Queen's Sacrifice, and it's worth 5x at the very minimum, but it's more like 5.4, 5.5. Right, so if you're calling it 5.5, that means that you're making a total of about 0.60 or 0.7. Let's call it 0.7. 0.7 exalt profit off of just buying 5 cards. That is a lot of profit. That's like 20C profit per card, basically. So very, very good profit there. But once again, you can actually go further. If you have a character that's capable of actually completing this prophecy, you can actually make the Adziri's Reflection from the Adziri's Mirror, and then instead of selling it for 5 or 5.5x, you can get an extra 0.5 to even 1 plus exalt profit on top of that, just because you're going into Uber Adziri and killing her. Now, of course, Uber Adziri is not something that's capable to be done by every single build. But now, another thing, if you want to go even further that you have to remember is that prophecies that are faded for faded uniques keep their actual rolls. Now, of course, I know the prophecies are going away next leak, so a lot of this information is no longer going to be as valuable, but for the people who are still going to be trying to grind their way, or still grinding right now, it's going to be, every step of the way you can make a little bit more profit. So instead of buying an Adziri's Mirror, right? So looking at Adziri's Mirror here, instead of buying Adziri's Mirror for, say, a couple Chaos, right? You could actually buy a well-rolled Adziri's Mirror for maybe 20 or 30C, and then whenever you go ahead and complete the Adziri's Reflection, say you buy a shield that has 58 intelligence and 28 all resistance, which is honestly, let's just see how much that would cost. So 58 intelligence is what I was going for anyways. It's not quite perfect, but it's good enough. And then 28 all res. Now, for those wondering, this is used by int stackers, and they obviously care as much about the intelligence as their most important thing, but also the all elemental resistances, because they do struggle with resistances. As you can see, if you buy one of these shield, non-corrupted, it'll cost you about 20, 30, 40C. I was able to pick some up for just a few chaos, sometimes all the way up to, I think 40C is the most I paid for one of them, which is like 0.3 exalt, right? But all things considered, if you get these rolls on the shield, which are guaranteed because they stay over from the non-faded to the faded version, you are going to have a shield which is going to be worth quite a bit more than the 6 exalt that we were talking about, right? We went from 6 to 8, and of course, if you look offline, it might be a little bit less than that. But I was personally selling them for 7 to 7.5-ish for my shields that had these rolls. And of course, if you get lucky, you can actually go a step further. Let's say you do the Awakener, you do the faded unique, right? You do the actual prophecy, the Queen's Sacrifice. When you do get the faded version of the shield, the Adziri's Reflection, if you get lucky, on top of having good intelligence and good all elemental resistances, let's say you get lucky and get a good roll to maximum total energy shield, and of course a good roll to effect of your curses, this shield can actually easily be worth in the 10 plus X range. And if you get a truly beautiful shield, something like this, for example, where he is, perfect on the maximum energy shield, you can get a shield that is worth almost twice the amount of a regular base shield, which we said was about 6x. So we're going from a divination card, which are costing you 4.8x, to a prophecy, which is worth like 5, buying a base shield for 30, 40C, then buying a set running Uber Adziri, and then instead of making a profit of about, 0.7x like we would have made initially, we are going to be making a profit of, at the very least, if we're selling for 6x, an additional 0.5, which means 1.2, 1.3x profit. And then if we get lucky, we have a potential to make 4, 5 plus exalt profit. And this is from a set of divination card, which is only 5 cards and 1 boss skill, which is not all that hard. A build like I have here, Seismic Trapper, does it with basically your eyes closed. It's extremely easy. trappers and miners and minion builds, things that are immune to reflect, are typically going to be very good for Uber Itziri. So it's not like you have to invest a ton of currency in a character to be able to do this. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did on the third day. Because as I said, every single day I was trying to do a different strategy. And this pretty much completes all of the entry-level flipping strategies that require no sort of making crazy filters or no sort of game knowledge or no sort of abusing other players or anything like that. It is just completely being paid for the fact that you're providing a service. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed the series. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to do another Zero here or what we're going to be doing. But this has been how I personally made my Headhunter in 22 hours from absolute scratch. Now, as always, before I go, I do want to say a massive thank you to my supporters. So, Likim Hamad, Max F, Georgie Rascorel, Stan, Brandon, welcome back, Thomas, Nate, the Great Master, Alex, the other Alex, Tim, Mercury, Johnny, Scott, Nailed, Kevin, Killer Kev, Dubstep, Alex, Bitizen, and Xenjeric. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the series. We will probably be doing another one in a future league where prophecies are not available, but that's all right. There's always something else that you can do from your hideout in order to make currency. So I didn't include any sort of crafting in this series because honestly the price of Headhunters were so cheap it didn't really make any sense because only big ticket items sell when you're like 1+ month into the league. It's hard to sell very, very low tier items. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed the series and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.